All right. Second here. I'm excited. It's like Christmas Eve tonight.
That's it.
It's Christmas Eve. I'm going to get us going here, John, and we're going to get cranking here. I'm going to make sure I share us to our personal page. Okay. There you are. All right. Over there. Hit record. And welcome to the Super Terb Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Ida Group in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hashtag Coach Terb, hashtag Super Terb. And I have a treat tonight. For many of you football fans out there, you know I talk real estate, business, sports, and beer in the triangle. But you know what? Tonight, we're just going all sports. Anybody that knows me knows I love the Panthers. You know on Sundays it's an event. And I have John Ellis. I'm very pleased to have him join me today. He's probably one of the best social media content for Panther fans on Twitter, also known as One Panther Place. And you're also the host of The Roar. And so I can't wait to have you on, brother. We're going to talk some Panthers. We're going to talk some drafts. Some things happened today. I want to hear what you think we're going to do with the 8th pick. We're going to talk about maybe a not so early projection of 2021. So I hope everybody joining me today. If you have questions for John, make sure you show some comments. I'll make sure to bring them up on the screen. And we're just gonna have a blast. I've got my Sierra Nevada cold beer. I'm opening it up right now. Again, it's Christmas Eve here in the Turbot household.
That's right. Look at the green screen.
Yeah, so it's awesome, right? So, John, I'm going to take a quick break because I have commercials for the audio portion of this podcast. When I come back, I'm going to have John Ellis on the other side. Real estate guys, real fast. We all know what inventory is beyond its historic lows. Historic lows were a 73% decrease in inventory from a year ago. Our average appreciation is up 14% from a year ago. Average sales price in Wake County is $421,000. I'm telling sellers what they can get for their home, and they actually can't believe it. So if there's any at all, if you want a no obligation market analysis for your home, please reach out to me. You know that's what I'd love to do is help you accomplish your real estate goals. But on the other side, we're going to have some fun, John. Let's get going, all right?
Let's do it.
And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert of the Ida Group, Coldwell Banker, HPW, also known as Super Terb, hashtag Coach Terb, and John Ellis. Happy to have you, man. First of all, anybody watching you, we're on live on YouTube. We're on my Facebook page. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be Apple Podcasts. So anybody watching or hearing, tell everyone who you are, where you are right now, and what you do.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me, man. I'm all good. First of all, I like the Panthers here. I like to fancy myself a journalist here, but we're going off. This is Nina, by the way. Hey, you doing?
Hey,
Nina stepping in. This is my go-to gal right here on One Panther Place. I'm John. I'm One Panther Place on Twitter. I do Panther analysis. You guys, some of you follow me, some of you don't. It's been an interesting couple years. We've got a nice following here, and then we've got onepantherplace.com cooking, some articles up on there. I've got kids crawling all over me, of course, as always, and we try to get our work done as efficiently as we can with 3 kids around this house. But man, I appreciate you having me on. This will be fun.
Yeah, man. So let me ask you this: what made you start One Panther Place in the media coverage you produce? Because what do you do besides One Panther Place?
What I do and what do I do besides One Panther Place?
Yeah.
I'm a radio guy. I've been in the radio business for about 20 years, in and out of it. So I started in morning radio here in Greenville, Spartanburg, worked at Magic 98.9, did mornings there for a couple years. I worked down in Clemson at a station. My dad's a radio guy, so I've been in this business for a long time. And now I host the Ingles Tailgate Show and the Ingles Countdown to Tip-Off Show, which is the iHeartRadio flagship show for Clemson athletics. So anytime there's a Clemson football game, Clemson basketball game, myself and Richmond Weaver were the host of that show. And so it's about 30 shows a year total we do on that. Production, I do a lot of radio production on the side, and then I write, freelance, whatever I can do to make a buck. And at nights now I'll be working at my BMW. Look, I'm starting up at BMW around the corner. Cranking some shafts and making some cars tonight. So I do a little bit of everything, man, to make it work.
Yeah. What made you say I'm going to do One Panther Place? Because I will say this: I'm on Twitter. I'm big on social, business, my videos, YouTube, all that. But Twitter's mainly my Panther go-to, and you're on all the time, and the clips you share for lifelong Panther fans, it's amazing. So what you say? I'm going to start posting. I mean, obviously you're passionate about it,
right?
But you know what? How long have you been doing that?
I started this. This is funny. My first time doing anything Panthers related was back in 2011. And I started my Twitter account then. And I was a freelancer with Intercom Radio, which is now Odyssey. They've changed their name. But I worked for the Intercom chain of stations here in Greenville, Spartanburg. And I worked for the Spartanburg Herald Journal as a freelancer. So I was sent out to Panthers camp to do some coverage of the Panthers. I got a full press pass. It's the first time I did. It's 2011, Cam Newton's first camp, Ron Rivera's first camp. So the one Panther place was nowhere in the equation then. I just went out there as a freelancer and covered and wrote about it and had a little blog going. And it was great. And from there, I had to take some time out, had to work, had to make some money for the family. Just didn't have time to dedicate to it. And I've gotten to a point now where, my wife is a nurse here in town. I've got 3 or 4 jobs I'm working. I'm making it work. So about 2 years ago, my brother and I started this concept where we're just going to call it One Panther Place. Very simple. It's just one place you can come for all your Panther stuff. So we go back in the archives and look at some old tape. Obviously, we do film study. We're just like you, Mike. We've been doing this since '95. We're way back in terms of following this team. We're passionate about it. So we go back and find some of the sort of the hidden gem moments from this franchise that people I think forget. Some of the great games from '95, 2003, 2005. And kind of get the new breed of fans up to speed on some of the great days you and I remember. And I take a lot of pride in that. That's what we do, man.
We're both lifelong Panther fans, like you said. Yeah. And so what are your first memories of the Panthers?
My first memory of the Panthers, let me tell you, it would be 1995 in Clemson. I didn't go to the first couple of games. My first game was their first win against the Jets. And so it was my
Sam Mills pick on the shovel pass.
Mills picking off, the shovel pass from Bubby Brister
and the Jets.
Of the New York Jets. 26-17 win for the Panthers, their inaugural win. And it was Clemson. I grew up in the upstate, so I being just a Clemson guy, it was like heaven to me. I'm watching an NFL team here in Clemson. That year, I'm going to tell you something. The 49ers, when they came to town, I went to J.L. Mann High School, which is in Greenville, and played JV football that year for the team. Was not very good. Obviously, that's why I'm here talking football and not coaching or playing it. But we had the 49ers come to our high school and practice unannounced because they always have a tradition. The Niners, they did, at least back in the DeBartolo days, of practicing at local high schools on the road. And we had John Taylor and Jerry Rice and Steve Young in town on our field practicing. And there's a picture I've got on Twitter. I have to retweet it, of me and my teammates like looking flabbergasted out of the field, like, this is so cool.
Was Merton Hanks in the neck out there?
Merton Hanks was there, and
funny story for that. So in '96, when we came in and we opened up a can on them, and with funny stories, so I will be honest. So I'm originally from San Jose, California. Okay. So the Niners were my team, and when we moved to Raleigh when I was 7. We followed the Niners, but we always wanted a team of our own. And I remember when the Panthers started in '95, it was odd because we were in the NFC West. So it was like, how do I do this?
Right. It's weird, right?
And I remember '95, we were 7-9, and then '96, I remember I just put all my Panther stuff, took all my Niner stuff down. I said, this is my team. We're PSL owners. I say we, my parents. And so '96, of course, we got onto that hot start. I think we were 3-0 when the Niners came in. Yep. And they were staying. We'd always stay at Marriott City Center there off Trade, my parents. And I remember getting on the elevator, and there's Dwight Clark and Merton Hanks.
How about that?
And then, of course, that it was so cool. And then, of course, we got up 17-0 on them.
Yeah.
We were in the News and Observer skybox for that game. And my brother, who flew in, who's a Niners fan, he didn't say a whole lot that game. So that was a lot of fun. So have you always been a season ticket holder?
No, I have actually. I've never been one.
You've never been one.
My grandfather, who God rest his soul, he passed away in 2001. His company in Charlotte had season tickets, and so we were able to kind of poach in on that. And when they wouldn't go, they had corporate. It was in the club level too, so it was kind of cool. It kind of felt really like it was 300 level. Man, we're in the silver seats. But since then, when that ended, we went to as many games as we could. It was my dad, my brother, and I. We just drive up, and usually back in the old days, we just buy tickets off the street, Mike.
There was games they just gave. I remember
Yeah.
We've been through it all. So I remember a game just giving it to the guys at the tickets turnstile. Like, here's a free ticket.
Yep.
I mean, you couldn't even give them away for $5. We've seen the bad.
Were more valuable than others, as you know. It was like 2001. We were psychos in 2001. We went to like every game. We'd buy tickets on the street, even when they were playing the Rams late in the year. The Cardinals game. I tell you what, the most depressing game I've ever been to, and there's been a lot of them, but the most depressing game was Arizona 2001. And I remind my friend Luther Broughton, who played for that team, we talk about it a lot. This is the George Seifert year, and it was freezing cold. And we're walking into the stadium, and we hear the loudspeaker. Oh, John Robinson, who used to do the PA in there, and I could hear fumble by Richard Huntley, recovered by Arizona. I'm like, oh, no.
So I have a great story myself. So my wife and I met Our first date was October 13th, 2001.
Okay.
And
was that the Jets game of 01?
No,
I'm trying to remember.
The next game was the Saints when Ricky Williams took it off the left tackle with no time left.
Oh, I was there.
So, but here's the funny thing. So my wife, she just pretended to care about the Panthers while we were dating. Now she's just like, ugh. But I remember I take her out on our first date, and I get back to her apartment, and I'm saying goodbye. And I remember I wanted to ask her to the game the next day, but I also knew that meant meeting my parents, meeting my mom, which, that's a big step. And I remember saying, would you like to go to the game with me? And she goes, well, I'd love to, but I have a test. And I'm like, well, a test Monday? She's like, no. I'm like, Tuesday? She's like, a week from Wednesday. She was a nurse. So I thought that was hilarious. So I wrote my 30-page history page thesis the night before it was due. She's actually commenting right now. I'll share this with you. She says, oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord.
There she is. Yeah. So the next day, okay, so I got questions coming. I'm going to actually take these back, and we'll get to them in a second. So the next day we go to the Saints game. And my parents had seats in Suite 87 for a few years, Okay. So I was out in I know my seat, section 337, row 11, seat 1. It's my seat. And I remember sitting there in the rain. We had social distancing back then. Yeah, by myself, and of course Ricky Williams takes it off the left tackle and beats us with no time left. And I remember all that. So it's funny. So, but we'll get into other stories here. So let's talk about the news today, brother. Teddy Bridgewater, man, moved to Denver. We got our 6th round draft pick back for Sam. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good thing they got it done. Obviously, with the draft coming up, I'd heard some buzz from people I've talked to around the league that this trade was incoming. This was something that they were working hard with Denver. San Francisco was mentioned in the mix for a while. I never put too much stock into that because they've got a tricky situation with deciding on their quarterback, and they still got Garoppolo to unload. So I never really bought into that rumor, but Denver always seemed like a sensible destination for Teddy. And some people are disappointed about the compensation, 6th rounder, but the way I look at it, the tape on Teddy last year, look, it was not good. It was not great. No. I'm surprised a team put any draft stock into that. I mean, like I said earlier, they got a 5th for Kyle Allen, they got a 6th for Teddy, and Cam Newton, they got nothing. And it's all about timing, Mike. Market conditions changed, and so I think it's good that they kind of offset that Sam Darnold cost now with that 6 coming back.
So we'll still have 3 6s in it over the weekend.
Yeah,
and maybe who knows what's going to happen. But I always thought this when we obviously 2020, no one saw it coming. But I also knew what they did with Cam. We saw a mile away. I mean, first of all, Cam wasn't going to play without guaranteed money. I think we had injury fatigue. I'm Cam's biggest fan, biggest supporter. I just hate he got hurt. I remember the game he got hurt at. It was against the Chargers in 2016. He was chasing down a play that didn't even count because fat-ass Kelvin Benjamin stopped on a route, and he hurt his shoulder right there. And then, of course, it was just, he's injury fatigue. So I see where, what you have to invest. But I think Hurney gave us a little Hurney special on the way out. I never understood giving a quarterback that of Teddy Bridgewater's caliber. When I coached in basketball, we'd always recruit, and we'd look at talent. And I remember my old boss, Charlie Schaaf, one of the best coaches out there, and he'd say, he's good, but he's good enough to get you beat. And that's Teddy Bridgewater. No disrespect to Teddy. Yeah, no disrespect to Teddy. Good guy. Everyone starts off good guy. Good guy.
Always.
However, always good guy.
He did it. He's a great guy. Without saying, but it's a business.
But how do you give him $33 million guaranteed when the guy hadn't played really? So I never understood that. And I mean, obviously the way they constructed the contract, it was exactly that, a 2-year with a 3-year club option. But I mean, like, and notice, obviously he didn't have CMC for 13 games. That would have helped him. But we want something. The one thing I like about Darnold is I think he can, obviously he's had a rough go of it, but he's only 23. If he's coming out, if he was being drafted tomorrow, where would he be selected? Probably number 2, right? Probably physically with the physical talent, as far as behind Trevor Lawrence. But he can at least throw it 15 yards on an out route and get it to DJ or Robbie or now we have the receiver from Seattle, free agent.
Dave Moore.
Yeah. But all I'm getting is like I could just tell it wasn't the right fit. So the fact they got a 6th-round pick for him, because they would have released him, and we're paying 7, they're paying 3 million. I know the cap hit's not as lovely, but I thought it was the right thing to do, and I think he goes to Denver, and it's a good spot. He's there with Locke.
The release would have been really prohibitive cap-wise. Yeah. They had to work this out to where they restructured the deal, and each team ate a bit of the cost, and because if they had just cut him, it would have been a terrible cap hit. And that's why I hated this contract, because the minute I looked at it, I looked at Teddy's tape from New Orleans, and everybody's raving about 5-0, 6-9. I'm like, all right, let's go back and look at all the snaps and see what his contributions were to that.
I always tell people the teams that they played scored 13 points a game. Or their defense allowed 13 points a game that 5-game stretch. When they went and beat Seattle, they scored a defensive and a special teams touchdown. Yep. So there's a lot more than meets the eye. He just didn't turn it over. So he threw the swing passes to Kamara and Mr. 5-yard slant boy, as we call him.
I mean, it's Teddy's tape. It's been his tape since day one. I saw Darren Gant say something earlier on Twitter. I like Darren a lot. He said, you can call Teddy a lot of things, but he wasn't awful. And I responded. They said he's not awful at all. No, nobody. I'm just saying this is what Teddy was. He always was going to be short passing, intermediate guy, dink and dunk, game manager, and there were going to be limitations. The thing that let Teddy down, he had an audition there, Michael, those last 4 or 5 weeks. They had not made up their mind at all. And I've talked to people. First of all, there's a myth out there that this was all on Marty. This is not. I can tell you because I heard this from a source who knows what they're talking about here, who's in the organization, that the minute that Matt took that job, that's who he wanted. There was no doubt about it. That decision.
So that helps to hear that, because you hear conflicting reports. Matt, wasn't necessarily on board, and you have Herney and.
No, that's my source tells me that now as far as the contract goes, that's Marty's department, and that I'm sure Matt had limited, and Matt distances himself wisely so from that kind of stuff. He'll always say, "I'm just coaching these guys. I'm just coaching." Well, he's the highest paid coach this franchise has ever had. He's got some influence now. How much influence did you have on that contract? I can't say that, but I know the minute he took that job, he was eyeballing Bridgewater and Joe Brady as well. I mean, it was an obvious connection. So with that said, it was a disappointing contract and it was a disappointing season, and it's not his fault. You know how it is. Get paid. If you're a player, that's not your fault for taking the money.
No, not at all.
Teddy deserved to get a deal that he was offered, but to that end, you got to own up to that. You got to play up to that contract, and he didn't do that.
He's good enough to get you beat. And
that's right.
I think I'm excited. I'm excited about Darnold over any other young prospect, only due to the fact that he's already got 3 years in. Anybody you would draft tomorrow night, for example, if we did go with a quarterback at 8, or even if we would have moved up, you've got about 2 years built into that to even really see what's going on, obviously, as our defense goes up. So, all right, so you're in the draft room. You're in the war room tomorrow with Fitterer, Rule, Tepper, and there's one Panther place, and the 8th pick comes up. What are you doing with it?
Well,
are you moving back here? Here's a question right here. This is a good question.
So what would need to happen for the Panthers to move back? Eagles, Pats. What compensation can the Panthers expect? So I'm answering this question here.
Yeah. This is my fraternity brother, Donnie Self, on the mic.
Donnie Self, how you doing?
So Donnie, I have a question here, and this will be another question. So Joe Shofity is another fraternity brother of mine. He and I, me, Donnie, and Joe, we solve all the Panther problems daily on a group text.
That's right.
We've got all 7 rounds projected. We're still waiting on the call from Fitterer and Rule.
What would need to happen for the Panthers to move back? I tell you what probably need to happen. I see, again, there's 2 schools of thoughts here. There's some people I talk to that tell me that the Panthers are locked in on 3 really key options here. Number 1 would be Justin Fields, in no particular order, by the way. If Fields happens to be there at 8, they're very interested. This is not a smokescreen. It's also a little bit of fluffing up that trade value because they could be, they already got Sam. Doesn't hurt to get the interest level out, leak a little bit of info out that, hey, we want Fields. Because at number 8, if New England's sitting there and they know they care, I mean, it gets the value of that pickup, obviously. Teams start getting hungry to trade up to Carolina's spot. But I think if Fields is there, they'll really, really consider it. It's not a smokescreen. Number 2, J.C. Horn, the corner, that would be a trade back option, I think. I think they could deal back with Philly and get Horn. Philly might want to move up and get Slater. They might want to move up and get Justin Fields. They're not totally sold on their quarterback situation with Jalen Hurts, I think. And then there's a lot of talk about New England. There's been a lot of chatter. New England's talking to Atlanta about trading up and talking with Carolina about trading up. So I think those are some viable options right there.
Can you hear me? Okay, yep. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. Yeah, so I mean, do you think New England would move up? I just see the hoodie is just staying pat at 15, but I think he knows. Obviously, Cam's coming back for 1 year, and I know he needs somebody there.
I think Bill is living his best life right now. Bill had a bad year last year because they had a lot of opt-outs and they had to clean house financially. They brought Cam in on a very small 1-year deal, and they played around with it and they experimented. And obviously, Bill sees some things in Cam that I think I see on tape that you know what, there's some things. We get some weapons around this guy. We can give him another year or two, and he can give us a spark. I think New England at this point is serious about moving up. That's just my gut feeling. Yeah. I think if they see an opportunity to go get Justin Fields and groom him under Cam Newton for a year or two, feels like an ideal fit for me. That would seem to be a good deal, but I could see them also standing pat.
Yeah, I think we're in a great position. I think we've addressed a lot of the needs in free agency thus far. And then obviously no one knew. I think we would have been all in on Watson if everything, before everything happened to him.
Absolutely.
I mean, he likes Instagram masseuses. But other than that,
really unfortunate. All of it's so unfortunate because
it is.
And that's got to get sorted out. I'm not sure. I can't even pretend to know what's going on there. But that deal was probably.
I think we would have thrown everything at it.
Jeffers quarterback hungry right now. He and this goes back to the article that Joe Person wrote, and I've heard the same stuff from my source that Dave's in the war room. He's in the meeting rooms. He's right there looking at the board, and he is hungry for a franchise quarterback. And that does not end with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's on a 1-year deal with a 5th-year option, and this, their quest
very
is not
affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Why do you think there's a knock on Fields?
I was asked that on the radio this week, and I have nothing for you on that. I've talked to scouts in this league, multiple scouts who have scouted this guy, some college guys who have played against him. Nobody has a bad thing to say about the guy. Now, one thing you do hear is some of the one-read stuff. It's really a bad narrative. They have a different route tree at Ohio State. They run some different concepts. It's a little less sophisticated, perhaps, than some NFL coordinators would choose, but it's not anything any less sophisticated. It's no different than Cam Newton, what he ran at Auburn. In fact, it's probably more sophisticated. He's probably more pro-ready than Cam was. Cam was just gifted beyond belief and was given some great concepts by Rod Chudzinski year one and really grew into that role. I got no answer for you. I thought he'd be the 2nd or 3rd overall pick in this draft. Maybe he still will be. I don't know if I buy this Mac Jones stuff in San Fran. I
don't understand that. I
don't think it's. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Yeah. It could, but
tomorrow night's going to be a lot of fun. I just think tomorrow night's going to be a lot of fun.
But I've got on the Fields front. I've got no good answer for you. He's a great quarterback with a very high ceiling. Mac Jones is a high floor type of guy. You're drafting for floor, not ceiling with Mac Jones. With a Justin Fields, the ceiling is really high. Franchise quarterback. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson type of high, in my view, just from looking at the tape.
Yeah, and I didn't watch a lot of them. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I watched some. The one thing I could think the only thing that I was seeing from afar, I played the most football I played was 8th grade quarterback in middle school, and all I did was hand off. But I will say, he obviously, when he beat Clemson in the playoffs, wasn't it Clemson that, or is it, yeah. A lot of the balls he threw were just straight flies. It was seeing deep passes. The question that I have is, okay, and who knows when you're coming out is the timing routes, the slants, throw when they're not open, throwing them open. But who knows? I think Cam, like you mentioned, was the first quarterback where they took Cam's skill set and built around that skill set rather than trying to force him into something he wasn't.
That's the key.
You're seeing
when you have a transcendent talent like a Fields, that's what you do. You take, and that's why Kyle is Shanahan is very rigid in that West Coast, the boot option stuff he runs, the wide zone. He's very rigid. His system works well for him, but he needs a certain type of guy to run those run checks, to run those pre-snap calls. And Max seems to be more in tune with what he wants than Justin Fields, and that's fine. It's different strokes for different folks. To me, I'm more of a give me an athlete, give me a guy. He's got to be able to pass the ball. Justin can make the throws. Yeah. Justin's got good pocket movement. I have more questions about Trey Lance with accuracy and the snaps he's had and the competition, but I still like him a lot. But Fields,
he's big.
Fields is as good as Zach Wilson. I still think the Jets might be overlooking Fields a little bit too.
Yeah, no, I
but you're right.
Get it.
To your point, if your system is very scheme specific and you have to run timing and you have to run, rhythm passing, and it's got to be done that way from day one. And it's more of a sort of a John Gruden, Bill Walsh mechanical system.
And that's Shanahan.
Fields may not.
I think that's Shanahan. I think that's why he likes Jones and the year Matt Ryan. But luckily they didn't run the ball. But I mean, they made Matt Ryan an MVP and with his system and throw it, utilize it.
The Chudzinski tree was North Turner, and one of the things North Turner always loved to do was pound the rock and throw it vertically, and that's what Fields gives you. And I think that would be a great fit here. And Joe Brady has that Sean Payton background where they emphasize that Sean Payton learned under Bill Parcells, who worked with Dan Henning, who did this in Carolina. The tree, I'm fascinated by these coaching trees. You're a former coach. You know how this works. The influence always trickles down. And I just look at Joe Brady, what he can do here with a guy like Justin Fields. I think that's why they're still very fascinated with the guy.
Yeah, no question. So here's a question again from Joe. So obviously we have round one, but what do you think moving forward? I think we've got, especially getting the 6th round pick back now, we have 3 6s. Yeah. We have a pick, I believe, in every round. Yeah. We went all defense a year ago. We did. Where do you think we go for this draft after round one? Because I think this is the difference. I like Matt, and I think Matt Rule, he wants players that love football. That's one. And 2, I think he wants guys that he can play in multiple spots. And I think he wants to be fast.
The multiple thing is big with them. I can tell you that. I mean, every coach is going to tell you they want a guy that's tough and smart and all the intangibles, but the ability to be flexible, multiple, play their positions. A couple of the positions I look at it, if Fields was to go 8, and that's still an iffy thing. I don't know if that's going to happen. I just know they have a high interest level. It could be Slater. Slater's a multiple guy. He's a first-round guy, obviously. Second round, you're getting into guys like Richie Grant, maybe, the safety from UCF. We've talked about him on our podcast. Matt Rule loves this guy. This kid can fly.
And we need depth at safety.
You need depth. What you need is a deep middle. You need a deep middle guy because Chen's not that guy. Chen can play for you, but Chen's better in the box. Chen's going to be your Polamalu type at safety that can regulate the run, can play the tight end up on the line, can take on blocks and be sort of a Thomas Davis type of safety like he was back in the day before he transitioned to linebacker. I don't think Chen's going to transition. They got him listed as linebacker on the roster at Panthers.com, but it's all
he's special, isn't he?
He can play linebacker. He can play the will. He can play strong safety, but it's multiplicity. It's just what you can. The more you can do, the more you mean to Matt Rule and Phil Snow and those guys. Joe Brady as well. I would think eventually they need to maybe look at interior offensive line. They need to shore that up at some point. Wouldn't hurt to maybe add a receiver at some point. I've looked at Amari Rodgers from Clemson as a great fit. You lose Curtis Samuel. David Moore is a good vertical guy, but he's not a good slot guy, I don't think. Amari Rodgers would be a good fit because you got DJ coming up, contract year, and then you got Robbie Anderson on a short-term deal. You got to start thinking ahead with these picks. So that's kind of
because you can't. I think we've got to extend DJ.
Oh, you got
that's coming up, and Robbie. I don't know if we can afford both. obviously that's why they get paid.
I think the thinking was, maybe, and it just depends on what Robbie wants, but I think the thinking was they couldn't afford the three, which would be Robbie, DJ, and then Curtis. I think that's why Curtis had to go. They had to lock up Moten with a franchise. I think they can keep Robbie. It just depends on how they view his value moving forward. But he was quite explosive last year. He was one of the pleasant surprises on this roster.
He's great. And then the sound bites alone are worth every penny. You call him that? That's still the best line ever. You brought up Moten. I'm glad you brought that up because that's been kind of not talked about. Do you think there's any chance they get a long-term extension by July? Or have you heard anything on that front?
I've not heard anything specific on that, but I can tell you that they're working towards it. I think they'd like to get that done before the season starts. They value him a lot. They got him locked up with that franchise. You see some of the maneuvering they're doing now. They had to figure the Bridgewater thing out, how that cap thing was going to work out. They save a little bit this year. There's going to be a little bit of a dead cap hit, $17 million over 2 years, it looks like. But they do get some cap savings right away, and that might facilitate the opportunity to work a deal with Moten. But again, you got to sign your draft picks. They still might add a free agent or two out there. We'll have to see. I think ultimately they'll get a deal done. I just don't know if it'll be before camp.
That'd be great if they can, just for obviously to make because what is his guarantee? There's 13.5. Is that what he's making?
I think that's
guaranteed. So hopefully they can do it to where it can be a little more cap friendly.
Spread it out. Yep.
And so great question right here. They're saying 155 players on the draft board. Do you think some slip out of the seventh and become undrafted free agents? I don't know if you have any on the top of your head that maybe a diamond in the rough, but is there anybody that kind of you could think of?
There's so many guys that my analysis on the draft kind of goes about 3 or 4 rounds deep, and then I start diving into it. I can tell you about 4 or 5 guys. I mean, it might be a quarterback. There's a lot of running backs that go undrafted that are great value guys that could be picked up. But it's a strange draft because so few of these guys played last year. A lot of these guys sat out. And I've heard some teams talk about, and just getting to this point, the value in maybe trading those picks for next year's picks, because next year, at least in the later rounds, you're going to get a better evaluation on a lot of these guys. This year, it's been so hard to evaluate the medicals. And the first round, you kind of know what you're getting. But past that, it's going to be
interesting.
Really strange to see who these teams pick because they don't know a lot about these guys.
Yeah. Do you see us going to a 3-4?
No. I
think we're going because Riddick and Burns and they can both play standing up.
They can. I don't think they will. I think Burns and that's a good question, by the way. I think what they'll do is they'll stick base 4-3. They're going to play Brown and do 3 technique. They can play him at nose. Daquan Jones can do a little bit of both as well. Burns is best when you line him up, not wide 9, out wide. I've talked to his brother Stanley about this all the time. He's best with his hand in the dirt and you cut him loose. And when you try to get him out in space and coverage, you're losing quality reps when you do that with Brian Burns. They've added Hassan Reddick on a very team-friendly deal. And
it's almost a 1-year prove-it deal for him.
It is, and I think that's the value of Matt Rule relationships. It gives them an opportunity to get a guy like that in the door from Temple that otherwise probably would have demanded more money. But I think they just a base 4-3 nickel, a lot of 3-man fronts with some blitzing off the edge. But I think what you're going to see, it's very multiple. I mean, they could play some 34 fronts, 43 over, stuff like that. But I think what you're going to see in terms of base when they come out on first down, it seems like to run the ball is you're going to see, those 4 guys I talked about. You're going to see Denzel Perriman inside, who's a thumper, a better option than Tahir Whitehead. You've got Shaq out there, and I think you'll have Chin drop down and be that third backer safety hybrid.
Yeah, and the guy I think you may have mentioned his name was that the acquisition they just got from Tennessee. I think he was kind of an under the radar signing. That's very good.
Very good play. And
so I love the fact we're young.
Another 1-year deal too. Another 1-year deal.
Yeah, we're young, we're fast, and I think the latter half of the year they were really starting to get it. I mean, I always have to remind myself they didn't have mini camp, OTAs, training camp. The first 4 games was really our preseason, and then on top of that, you played in front of no fans. I mean, that had to be just the weirdest thing ever.
Weird environment. The whole thing was weird. I didn't go to any games last year. I honestly
me neither. I opted out. I almost went to one, and I was like, you know what? I only know how it needs to be, and I'm hoping by this fall that we'll be back in there.
And the press side of it too, it was so weird because like I've been in the ropes and I've done some of the press stuff for them, but it was the credentials were so hard to come by because of the limited capacity. And I didn't even fight that fight. I was like, look, you got some good guys fighting on the beat with like Joe and Nick Carboni and TV guys, Elena. They're covered on the beat. I'm just going to kind of sit back, look at the game tape and watch the games, and we'll press forward and maybe try to get some access moving forward. But it was a strange year. You're right. I mean, I remember talking to Nick Carboni from NBC Charlotte. He's one of my really good friends in the business, and Nick was just giving me like a play-by-play of how weird it was going through the training camp process in Charlotte. How it wasn't no fans. Everything was sanitized, and everything was centered around protection with COVID. And that league and the team in particular did a hell of a job. I think the NFL in general, to be able to play the whole season. Yeah. But like I said, I'm optimistic. I'm double vaxxed. That's my thing. I'm double vaxxed, and I got my next everyone. Yep. Yeah, and I'm hoping that by fall we're back in there. So all right, so we're gonna play a little crystal ball here. I'm gonna give you the number here. Okay, 9. Okay, what do we got?
Number 9. Right. Over under on wins 9 next year.
Oh man! Put me on.
Now we have 7. Now we have 17 games. That's why I went with 9.
I gotta take the hat off and then deal with less bias. That's Sam Darnold here, by the way. I like that. I'll say under right now.
Think so? So we got the NFC East and the NFC East and the AFC East this year.
Just a tad, just a shade on. I think they're in that
8.5.
8, yeah, they're 8.5 right now. They're right on the cusp. I think that's good though. I mean, and you can have a John Fox type of year too. That's what I envision. Matt Rule reminds me a lot of Foxy. You get that New York grit, got that New York Giants background. Just reminds me of his manner. He got everything about him. He's got that Tom Coughlin, Bill Parcells influence. I think they could come in and surprise people and win 10, 11 games. It's just one of those things. If I had to bet on, I don't bet on sports, but if I had to, I'd probably lean under because it's still a very tough division right now. And
we're a young team, but I will say that's what the NFL wants. The NFL is built for everyone to be now 8-9, or 9-8. Yeah. And then like last year, we went 0-8 with the ball down a possession.
Could have been
a few of those. Yeah, I know. And a couple we put on Teddy, but I mean, you can't really rely on a 75-yard field goal in Kansas City. There's things like that. But, I mean, we missed the kick in New Orleans. But at the same time, it's kind of like even the year, in 03, we went 11-5. I mean, when, the games that we won late, it's a bounce of the ball here. It's kind of like, you remember the divisional game, of course you do, against Seattle. And if you remember the very first drive, Jay Stu on the first run breaks it off for about 70.
Beautiful play.
Right, up off the left guard, and then he cuts back.
Mike Tolbert deserves a lot of credit for that run, by the way.
That, and then you remember the next play because he took a breather? Yep. Remember who was our backup that year?
It was Jay Stu and then Fozzie Whitaker.
No, it was another guy. It was the guy that never panned out for us. We drafted him. Anyway, the next play, he fumbled. And the ball bounced to Tolbert.
Cameron Artis Payne.
Yeah, Cameron Artis Payne.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he fumbles.
Yeah.
And the ball bounces right to it's Mike.
Yeah.
He doesn't recover that. Maybe we don't score. Like, those are the little things that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Similar to the year when Cam took us down. This gets to my segue, his favorite moments in BOA. But 2013 against New Orleans in the rain.
Great
moment. And my boy hits Teddy again on the deep slant. Probably one of the best throws of his career, because if you also remember that play, there should have been a rough in the passer. He got hit in the face. And he throws it off balance, hits Teddy, deep slant. But the very next play, tries to out, gets tipped in the air, luckily hits the ground. There's little things, before he hit played for the Giants, got the ball on the left goal line there.
Dominic
Hickson.
Yep.
That was the loudest the stadium has ever been till the 2015 NFC Championship.
Yeah.
That was a program building win. But it's little things like that the NFL is built for, and that's why it's fun.
Yep.
I mean, the average game is probably decided by 4 points, 4 to 6 points. And so, you look at certain things, the way they work, and then, of course, you get in the playoffs, who knows what could happen. Now you have 7, you have a lot more people fighting for that. Yep. So do you travel to road games?
Not really, no. I've made a few trips to Atlanta over the years, but it's just with family obligations and all that. I don't get to too many road games. Again, if this project picks up steam and we start to, with my work with iHeartMedia, we get some credentials for some road opportunities, I'll take it. I'll get down to New Orleans, get down to Tampa and see some more of these divisional. I really want to see some of the divisional road games. I'm fascinated by that. But hadn't made
Well, John, if you need an intern or you need extra credentials, I'll roll with you.
I love it, man. Always I see my daughter running around like my kids are my interns around here. I put them to work.
October. So me, I try to always go to one non-divisional game a year. Luckily in 19, was able to make the trip to London. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I heard that.
Also surprised my son Saturday morning, 5:30. We flew to Green Bay, sat front row in the end zone. The game we're in the snow. I've been to Tennessee in 2015. I was at Jacksonville for that opening game in 15 when our boy Josh Norman took the ball back.
Delta, the old horsey, rode Delta to the end zone.
So my goal this year is to go down to South Beach and/or Dallas. There's going to be an R-rated trip. That's just the guys. That's by South Beach.
Probably right.
Then there's a PG-13 trip in there. That's Dallas.
Yeah, that's right.
That's when I take my 13-year-old son to the PG-13 trip. Then we got the South Beach trip. But we got a good schedule. I'm excited. We have, and then we got Cam coming in. That's going to be that. Hopefully that will be a prime time. He'll be in his element there, man. So a few more minutes, man. I could go on and appreciate your time. What is your favorite memory in Bank of America?
All right, I'll take it back. I always talk to good friend Jim Zoki, Bill Rosinski about this game. I did a show with them a while back, and we've got it on YouTube. I'll repost it for you guys. But we talked about some of my favorite memories of going to the stadium because I was just I've been able to take the fan hat off lately, honestly, and just look at this team. We're doing this for show here, but I was a diehard fan. I used to just and I still am, but I've had to look at it more objectively now. I'd be pissed and moaning after every loss, no matter what. Even if they sucked that year, it would eat away at me. That's why I started this project, because it gave me the freedom to just look at it objectively and say, you know what? I love this team, but let's step back and look at it as if we're part of the staff, which of course I'm not. I know I'm not. But my favorite moment, 2003, they played Tampa at home. And this was a game that we scored some tickets in the club level. We were sitting right under Aikman and Buck and Collinsworth, the old Fox crew, and all week they were just giving Carolina, no chance to win. This is Tampa coming off their championship season. Early in the season, Carolina beat Tampa on the road with the blocked extra point. And this was the defining moment for this team, in my opinion. They gave up a couple of touchdowns late to Keenan McCardell, Keyshawn Johnson, and the big badass Bucks. That's what Warren Sapp was stomping on the field. And the lighting in that stadium that day was so vivid, coming through the shadows and the chill in the air. And it was that just early November uptown Charlotte feel in the air. And then Jake Delhomme gets the ball with 2 minutes left. And I played this clip multiple times. And right down the field, they have 5 passes. One was to Hankton, one was to Mangum. They threw up sort of a beautiful post route to Ricky Prohl. They did a hot read blitz, and Jake puts a little hero ball up the Moose, and he catches it around the 5, and they keep going down the field, and all of a sudden, Steve Smith on a slant just catches a Jake Delhomme touchdown pass.
Great play.
And the stadium went nuts. And after that guy, I tell you, after my mom, who passed away a couple years ago, one of my best memories of my mom is she didn't really go to the games, but she went shopping. She'd hang out at South Park, and we'd meet up with her after games. So I went down, and Dad and my brother went home, and my wife now was my fiance then. We went to Maggiano's in South Park. It was a restaurant down near the Cheesecake Factory. We went and ate. And all of a sudden, here comes John Fox and Jake Delhomme and Brenson Buckner on crutches. And the whole place goes nuts. And there's
that's awesome.
They're going upstairs in the private room to eat. And everybody's like patting Jake on the back. Foxy, baby, what's up? And that whole night, just that whole game, because that was the turning point for that season. That's the game where they really –
that was a magical year.
They swept the Bucks, and they were, I think, it's 7-2 at that point, 8-2, moving on to the division title, and that that always, for some reason, that game just always resonates with me. I've been to all the big ones too, but that one always just feels so special to me.
I was living in Arkansas for that game. I was coaching then, so there was a person about, but I was at the opening game. I took my boss against Jacksonville when we hit Prohl at the gun.
That was a good one too. I was there
when Rodney Pete. They brought in this guy named Jake Delhomme after half, and I remember he runs into the huddle and he high fives the whole huddle.
Yep.
And and then that was a special year. We went into Indianapolis that year and beat Peyton.
We did, and Bill Rosinski's talked about the former play-by-play guy. We've talked to Bill a lot of times. He says guys from the team have told him that win, even more than the one I mentioned, was the one that sort of told them, okay, we're for real now, because they shut Peyton Manning out in the second half. They held him to 3 points, no touchdowns. They picked him off on a screen pass with Ricky Manning, and they went down the field at the end with Deshaun Foster, who we had on one of our shows, and we talked about some of the runs he had in that game when Steven Davis went out. And they just proved guys could go down, but the second-string guys could pick up the steam. Buckner was out of that game. And they went in there and they put a whooping in the second half. Manning. That was an important win.
That was a great they won that in overtime, didn't they?
They did. One of several overtime John Casey game winners.
Yeah, that year was good. And then a funny moment, were you in the stadium in 96 when we beat Pittsburgh?
I was in that stadium for the Chad Cota game. It was amazing.
And the funny thing, well, that was also the game where Sir Purr jumped on the punt.
He did. Bill Cowher was furious.
They threw the flag, and Sir Purr's behind the field goal. He's doing one of those.
Cowher comes running out. I can see from my seat. He goes, "George, what the hell is this?" And he was just spitting, flying everywhere. He was furious. I remember that game so vividly too because
Cordell Stewart had like an 80-yard touchdown that game.
And then Sam Mills put the wood on him on one of those over the middle. And I read that was the first article I wrote for OnePantherPlace.com was about Chad Cota in that game. And it was, again, one of the special moments from my childhood. Remembering I was like 16, 15 at the time. Special moment. That was a great game.
And of course, you have X-Clown. And then Seattle, 2015. I remember when 2015 was happening. And I was telling every my friends, I'm that guy too. I call in all the time, Mac Attack and T-Bone, and I actually told them you were coming on my show, so I'm trying to get them on a Panther draft post game, post interview.
There's a good one in Mac. The guys, man, they're good.
Oh, they're our morning. I have the app up here in Raleigh. We don't necessarily get the same coverage than down there. But I remember 2015 just telling all my friends, and I was like, you got to bottle this up, man. This stuff doesn't happen. I mean, we just had it's like Fox said, we had a bad day to have a bad day, or, it was, against Denver. And, but we would have been 18-1. And, but that whole year was special. And I remember being up 31-0 on Seattle at halftime going, is this real life? And of course, of course they made us almost throw up. We had to recover an onside kick. But the Arizona game, I remember the disrespect that we were getting all that year. And I remember Arizona, I mean, that was just an unbelievable evening, an unbelievable night. And I was just so glad to be there because we, just like you and I said at the beginning of this podcast, we've been through the crappy times. We've been through, to be there. And it was just a magical moment. And Luke picking off Palmer there late and the guy falls out of the stands and just the celebrations was just awesome. But unfortunately, I was also in Pittsburgh when Cam hurt his shoulder. And,
that was a bad game.
I made that trip. I remember we were 6-2, and I remember we had great seats. I went up with a buddy of mine who was a Steelers fan, and we made a great weekend of that trip because we went up this Panthers played Steelers Thursday night, and he's a huge Penn State guy. So Saturday they played Wisconsin, Penn State. So it was a great weekend. But that Thursday night, we go down and score. McCaffrey catches the swing pass, touchdown. And I'm over there, and everyone was still filing in. It wasn't really full yet. And I remember the very next play, 75 yards. And, of course, every Steeler fan in the stadium.
That damn Juju Smith-Schuster who somebody broke it. Look, Bradbury, I think. I don't want to it might have been Eric Reed. One of them blew their assignment, and it was like – and if you watch the series All or Nothing, I'm sure you've seen it. Norv in the booth was like, well, they were just – the air went out of their tires.
Right when it happened, I was like, 0-0.
There's an interception after that, and then the TJ Watt. It was all downhill.
I was there leaving so
they haven't beaten Pittsburgh in 25 years.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
The last time they beaten the Steelers, Mike.
Yeah, that was a tough one. So we were there, and so. But anyway, I'm really optimistic about this team. I'm excited about rules going. So, where do you see us in 3 to 5 years? You think we're going to hoist the Lombardi?
3 to 5 years, I think it's very possible. I think this team's on the right track. I like Matt Rule a lot. I wasn't totally sold. I mean, look, he's a Baylor's coach, and it was Baylor's staff, and there was a lot of question marks I had about why are the Panthers giving this coach this contract? What's special that I'm missing? And then you talk to people, you see how he coaches and how his players respond. I was impressed. He managed games very well last year for a first-time head coach.
I think Rule's got it, man.
I like Phil Snow a lot too. I
think Rule's got it.
I think within about 2 years you can start talking, division championship competition. This division's getting old. They're aging. That Tampa Bay thing, that's not going to last, man. That's not a model for long-term sustained success. So I think Carolina's primed for a run here.
Well, we got the Aints that they have questioned at their quarterback position.
Yep.
Matt Ryan's got maybe 1 or 2 years left, and they've got to start making that conversation.
The Falcons are in a world of hurt with their cap too. They have a bad cap situation, and they've only got like 20-something players signed right now. They're in a mess. Yeah. So
I think what I'd love just for us to see, and I think this is maybe where Rules that answers, where we just have continued success, where we're in the postseason year after year, or at least we're knocking on the door. Because then once you get in, anything can happen. We've seen that. And typically the best team sometimes doesn't always win the Super Bowl. And it's a matter of getting in. Look at Philly a few years ago with Foles, and
Deshaun Foster talked to us about. I talked to Deshaun Foster about this, and he talked about his position coach Jim Skipper he had a red T-shirts printed out for the 05 Panthers that said Road Warriors, and they just blasted through everything. In 2 years, John Fox won 4 road playoff games, and that's what the moral I've always told people is. Why the fans last year? Oh, if you just sneak in the playoffs, you're just going to get your butt kicked by. And no, if you get in the tournament,
anything can happen.
You've got a chance, and you've seen the Giants do this. We've seen the Packers make a run from the wild card. You can do it, and this team, like I said, they slip in. They've got a lot of talent on this team, Michael. If they can somehow this year get that 10, 11 wins, slip in the back door, maybe at 6, 7 seed, they can compete with anybody. They almost beat Kansas City last year. They should have beaten the Saints. They were very competitive.
No, they were. Well, man, tell everybody where they can find you. Actually, no. I got one more question for you. I ask all my guests that come on this show, because again, a lot of times, and of course, I see you as an entrepreneur with what you're doing with the media game and building up One Panther Place. So I always ask this, and I love all the answers I receive, and I usually catch people off guard, but that's what makes it fun. What is the best advice you've ever been given, and by who?
Probably by my dad. He said, "You're the sum of all your choices." My dad's always told me that, and it's true. He said, there's circumstances obviously come up, but the point of it has always been, Dad has been very successful himself in the media business as a morning radio personality for a long time, and he's made choices that have worked out. He's made choices that haven't been great in terms of not necessarily career, but just it's life. You're raising kids, and it's not always easy. But if you make sound choices, usually good things happen if you put in the work. One of the biggest things I did with this site is just made a choice to try something, to do something. I started with 50 followers, and we're up to 8,000 now. Okay, I don't spend my days counting the followers and waiting on a check mark, but it's flattering. It's nice to be mentioned with some of the better analysts out there, and to get to know people. Like Matt Bowen from ESPN, who we talked to last week, and Mark Schofield from USA Today. Just some of the people I've looked up to over the years in the NFL business I'm now networking with. So again, just choose to do it. Just make a choice and go get it, and don't waste time. No,
I think that's fantastic, man. And
always kids around you to drive you nuts. Always.
Yeah. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, man.
I love sports. Sports is my passion. Obviously, I help people buy and sell real estate, but there's, I was a coach. I'm always going to be a coach. I love the Panthers. Those memories you got, we were sharing is what I missed last year. And taking my son to games. My dad took me to games, the memories we've been able to create. And when people say, why do you do it? Why do you go down to Charlotte every game? It's for that. I mean, people, I get it. I got pretty comfortable in my Panther room. I have got a Panther room at my house, 3 televisions. I got a 65 with 243 inches right there. We cooked out on it. Oh, yeah. Come on over, man. So it makes it nice. You got AC, you got your beer right there by the, but there's nothing like game day, man. Nothing like game day, and I'm hoping we get back to that. So if you can give me a second, I'm going to take a quick break. I always feature a local beer of the week, and then we'll take the show home, okay?
You got it.
All right, we'll be right back, guys, with my local beer of the week segment. John Ellis, thanks so much. One Panther Place. And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Turbot, a.k.a. Coach Terb, a.k.a. Super Terb. And again, just finished up with John Ellis. John Ellis, One Panther Place is here. And what I like to do, we have a lot of great breweries in the Triangle. And my local beer of the week, I really don't have a local beer of the week because I'm drinking my Sierra Nevada Hazy IPA. Of course, you can find this anywhere, but I always like to give a shout out to my friends at Taylor's Wine Shop at Six Forks Road. They've been on the Super Terb Podcast, and I'm going to hopefully have the owners of another great bottle shop, is D's Bottle Shop in North Raleigh. And I'm going to have those owners hopefully on the podcast soon. If you guys are looking for great beer, wine, make sure you go to Taylor's Wine Shop or D's Bottle Shop. Tell them Terb sent you. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you joining me on the Super Terb Podcast. John, man, it's been a pleasure. I hope to have you on more, hopefully when we're making that playoff push. And if you guys at all, if you can, please like, subscribe, follow me on, again, my Facebook business page, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if there's anything I can do to also help you accomplish your real estate goals, we'd love that opportunity. And again, it's Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Untitled Chapter Group, Coldwell Banker, HPW. And as always, remember, who you work with matters. See you guys next week.
Wow. All right.
In the broadcast.